Demo of how to create a peg. All right, so this is going to be a quick demo of how to create a peg in Harmony Toon Boom. So when you get to this screen, just go ahead and give your scene a name. I'm going to call mine finger point. You can name it whatever you want based on what it is you're going to draw, and then go ahead and create scene. Might take a moment, but here we are. So first thing that we're going to do is we're going to get our screen set up. So over here in the layer palette over here, I'm going to add my color card, which is something that everybody should be doing right away when they start. It is a lot better to be drawing on a white background than on the gray default one that comes with when Toon Boom opens. And then in the very first layer of my drawing layer, I am going just to draw a simple arm. Now I'm going to make it really simple. It doesn't have to be complex because we're going to be adding some animation to it after, and we're only doing this for a quick demonstration purpose. So I'm going to create a finger here, kind of the wrist, fingers going back, and maybe just like a little thumb right there. So a simple arm. There's nothing special about the drawing, just something that kind of resembles a little bit of an arm. Now the next part is we want to be able to move this independently. So we want to be able to move the elbow independent of the shoulder. So what we're going to do is we are going to cut these apart. Now if you want to draw these in two separate layers to begin with, you can. But I like drawing the whole drawing first on its own and then cutting it apart. So this is what we're going to do. I'm going to come up here to where the black selection arrow is. I'm going to click and hold and select the cutter tool. Now what this allows is, this allows you to cut a drawing into multiple pieces. So I'm going to select or cut the upper arm at the elbow. And you can see that I have that one part selected on its own. I'm going to either Command X if you're on a Mac. If you're on a Windows keyboard or Windows computer, it'll be the Control or Windows key in X. So we're going to cut like that. We're going to add a new layer. I'm going to call this, what should I call this one? I think I call this one elbow. And I'm going to paste right in that layer right there. So I have two layers down here now. I have one that says drawing and one that says elbow. Now I'm going to double click and rename the drawing layer shoulder. And that way I have both parts of the arm set up right there. Now here comes the next part, and this part could cause some confusion, so I will kind of go over it and repeat it a couple different times. So you can see right now that I have each part of the arm on a separate layer, and now I'm going to add a peg. And what a peg is, it is a single control point for an object. So picture having a piece of paper and a push pin, and you put the push pin to the paper. And you can hold that push pin, and wherever you drag that pin, the paper follows. And that's kind of what we're doing with the drawing here. And that pin is called a peg in animation. So right here, that little plus sign in your layer palette, I'm going to click there, and I'm going to say peg. Now what's going to happen is you're going to get a little display message right here. This is an issue that Harmony has, and I wish they would fix it, but they don't. So we have to do one more step before we can actually add a peg. And if you see what it says, cannot add peg in this display mode, change to display all mode. The way we're going to do that is up here at the very top. We're going to click on Scene, Default Display, Display All. Scene, Default Display, Display All. And once we do that, we will now be able to add our peg. It's a setting issue in Harmony. There's no way I have of fixing that ahead of time. So it's one additional step that we have to do before we can add a peg. So once again, with the shoulder layer selected, I'm going to click on the plus, and I'm going to select peg. Now, right away, you're going to notice that something changes in your layer palette. You have this one item up here. This is shoulder-P. That P means peg. And then you have your shoulder drawing underneath it. So we have two different items here. Here's the peg. Here is our drawing. So from now on, we're not going to change our drawing. We are only going to modify the peg. So if you go over on that first frame on the peg layer, that is where we're going to control our peg. The peg controls are right up here at the top. This is a move, rotate, scale, and skew. These four are the ones that we're going to be worried about right now. But for this specific drawing, we're only going to use the rotation tool. So I'm going to click on that one that looks kind of like a circle, and you'll notice something appears on the screen. Now it's really hard to see on my screen. In fact, maybe if I turn the color card off, you can see a little bit better. Actually, you can see a little bit better right there. There's this little point with a circle around it. That little dot in the middle is a pivot point. So I'm going to click there and drag it to the center of my shoulder. And now I can rotate. Now, initially when you see that, you might think, oh my God, it's broken, but it's not. What it means is that, remember, it's only that drawing, that part of the drawing, that is on that layer. So it's doing exactly what it's supposed to be doing. But we know that because of the way our arms work, that we need the whole arm to follow with that shoulder. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to click on the elbow layer in the layer palette, and we're going to click and drag it over the top of the shoulder pin. You should see a little square attached to the mouse cursor there. I'm going to let go. And now the elbow is now under that one peg. So when I click on my peg again, the whole arm follows. And that'll make it really quick to animate that whole sequence just like this, without having to draw anything else right now. Now, the way arm moves is you have two pivot points. You can move the arm at the elbow, and you can move at the shoulder. So we need to add one more peg that's going to control the elbow. So once again, down here at the bottom, or not at the bottom, but in the layer palette, click on shoulder, and then click to add a peg. And now we have a peg right above where it says shoulder. We're going to select in that first frame for the shoulder peg. We're going to move it into place for the elbow. So now we have one more thing to add. We're going to add in a peg for the elbow. So click on the elbow and add peg. So now we should have a peg right above the elbow as well. We're going to click in that layer, and we're going to move it at the center of the elbow. And now we can move the elbow, and now we can also move the arm. So now we have two different pegs, and we can operate each one independently. Now, right here, you'll see that the drawing breaks apart really a little bit. That's a problem that we'll solve at another time. So the only thing I'm showing right now is how we can use pegs to animate really quickly, and I'll show you what I mean before we end the video. So let me get all of this to a starting point. So we're going to start with our arm kind of up like this, and the elbow back like this. And we're going to end with it being completely pointed. So I'm going to click on the end frame now. So this is our beginning frame. This little dot here on the timeline represents a keyframe. So the computer remembers this position. and we're going to do 20 frames of animation here. So for the shoulder peg, I'm going to click on 20, and now notice it disappeared. Your drawings disappeared. Remember that down here, we have to extend these drawings. So I'm going to click and drag it over to 20. I'm going to click on the shoulder and drag it over to 20. And now it'll appear on all those frames. So there, I'm going to click on the shoulder peg. And now I'm going to set my endpoint for the shoulder. Right there. And now notice what happened on the timeline. I automatically get this line connecting those two keyframes. What that means is the computer is automatically figuring out those positions in between those two keyframes. And now I'm going to do the same thing for the elbow. And I'm going to set it pointed like this. So now my entire animation is complete. That is my finger point. I'll go over some details in another video, but that should be enough to get you started with using a peg. And in class, we'll talk about different applications of how you can use this. That's it.